Level 1. The friends and family round. You start in your apartment, at a folding table, with a laptop and a pitch deck you made yourself. 29 slides. A logo you paid $60 for on a freelancer site. You call it a fund. The first money that comes in is small, and it is trusting in a way that should terrify you, and doesn't. Your aunt writes a check for $8,000. Your college roommate Thomas puts in 5. He doesn't ask for the paperwork you promised to send. He says he trusts you, and he means it the way people mean things when they've never been lied to by someone they love. You tell yourself the strategy is real. Some of it even is. A few actual trades. A real brokerage account. Numbers that move up as often as they move down. The lie isn't in the investments yet. The lie is in the returns you promise, which are numbers you picked because they sounded believable, not numbers the market ever agreed to. Your brain is already doing the math. If I make 11% this quarter, nobody will ever ask how I got to 14. The first check clears. Nothing happens. No alarm sounds. This is the part nobody warns you about, that the first crime is the quietest one you'll ever commit, and it feels less like a crime than a promise you intend to keep. By the end of the round, you've raised $210,000 from 19 people, most of whom call you by your first name, and none of whom asked for an audit. You learn. The system doesn't check credentials, it checks confidence. Level 2. The closer. The office is real now, a sublet with a glass door and your name etched into it, which cost more than the desk. You wear a blazer you can't quite afford, and you've learned to talk without using the word guarantee, even when that's exactly what you're doing. Referrals start finding you instead of the other way around. A dentist, a retired school teacher, a man who inherited his father's construction company and doesn't understand what a Sharpe ratio is, but likes that you do. You build a slide with a chart that goes up and to the right, and you don't mention that the chart represents a fund that doesn't hold what you say it holds. The unspoken rule of this level: never write anything down that a subpoena could read literally. You speak in ranges. You speak in historically. You let people fill in the blanks with whatever number makes them comfortable, and they always choose optimism. Thomas visits your new office. He's proud of you in a way that makes something in your chest go tight for half a second before you swallow it. He asks if he can put in more. His signing bonus from his new engineering job, $12,000. You say yes before you've thought about whether you should. That's your first mistake. Not the lie itself, but letting someone who loves you fund it. A client wants to withdraw $60,000 to cover his daughter's wedding. You don't have $60,000 sitting anywhere. You have obligations that look like money, and money that's already spent on rent, on the blazer, on a Rolex you bought to look like a man who doesn't need to lie. You take money from a newer investor to cover the withdrawal. You tell yourself it's temporary, a bridge, not a pattern. It is already a pattern. Level 3. The machine. By now, the fund has 41 investors and just under $3 million, and almost none of it exists in the form your clients believe it does. What exists is a rotation, new money paying old obligations disguised as returns that convince people to send more. You've stopped thinking of it as a lie. You think of it as cash flow management, a phrase you picked up somewhere and now use in the mirror. Your daily reality is arithmetic and performance, in equal measure. Mornings, real trades, small ones, enough to keep a legitimate transaction history in case anyone ever looks. Afternoons, calls where you describe a portfolio that is 40% fiction, using a tone you've practiced until it sounds like calm confidence, instead of the thing it actually is. Evenings, a ledger only you see, tracking who needs to be paid before someone notices. The fund can't survive an audit. You hire an assistant. She books your meetings and never sees the second ledger. You are careful in a way that feels like professionalism and is actually the architecture of a crime. A client's business partner, an actual CPA, asks to see the fund's audited financials. You stall for 6 weeks. You blame a transition between fund administrators. You send a document you built yourself that looks enough like an audit to survive a glance and not a real one. Something fundamental shifts the night you build that fake document. Not because it's your worst act, you have worse ones coming, but because it's the first thing you do that has no plausible, innocent explanation. Everything before this could have been mistaken enthusiasm. This is architecture. You sleep that night. That's the part that scares you later, in retrospect. You slept fine. Level 4. The redemptions. The market turns. Not catastrophically, just enough that your legitimate trades lose money at the exact moment your obligations are compounding. 14 investors request redemptions in the same 6-week window, totaling $1.1 million you do not have. You start doing something you swore you never would, recruiting harder, faster, from people with less capacity to lose what they're giving you. A woman 2 years from retirement puts in her severance. A young couple liquidates a down payment fund. You tell yourself their money keeps the machine running long enough for the machine to become real again, and some fractured part of you still believes that's possible. It is not possible. The math stopped being possible $400,000 ago, Thomas calls. He's heard something, a rumor from a friend, someone who works in compliance somewhere, and used the word unregistered. He doesn't accuse you. He asks, quietly, if everything is okay, in a voice that tells you he already suspects the answer and is giving you room to tell him the truth. You lie to him directly for the first time. Not an omission, a lie, aimed at the one person whose money you never should have taken. He believes you. He always believes you. That's what makes him Thomas. You use his continued faith as evidence, in your own head, that things can't be as bad as the numbers say. If Thomas still trusts you, maybe you haven't really done anything unforgivable yet. Level 5. The Inquiry. A letter arrives from the Securities and Exchange Commission. Not a subpoena yet. An inquiry. A request for information. The bureaucratic equivalent of a hand resting on your shoulder before it closes into a grip. You hire a lawyer who costs $1,100 an hour and tells you, in the careful language lawyers use, that your fund's structure raises significant concerns he can't currently characterize as fixable. You hear the sentence underneath the sentence. There is no version of this that ends with you keeping the office, the Rolex, or your freedom. Your pace of life compresses into something almost unbearable. Meetings, depositions. A forensic accountant hired by your own defense team who looks at your books for 4 hours and asks to speak to your lawyer alone. Clients start calling in a register you've never heard from them before. Not concerned, afraid. You stop returning most calls. You keep returning Thomas's. He asks you directly, sitting across from you at a diner neither of you can really afford anymore, whether his money is gone. You tell him it's tied up, not gone. Tied up is not a lie exactly. It is also not remotely the truth. He nods. He doesn't demand it back. He says he'll wait. You understand, sitting there, that he is the only person in your life who will still be sitting across a table from you when this is over, and that understanding does nothing to stop what happens next. Level 6. The Unraveling. The SEC upgrades the inquiry to a formal order of investigation. A judge freezes your accounts, the real ones and the ones you thought no one knew about. 41 investors become 63, become 104, a number that keeps climbing as people who never met you discover their retirement funds were fed through your machine by advisors who trusted your numbers the way Thomas trusted your face. The office door with your name on it gets photographed by a local news crew standing outside it, waiting. Federal agents arrive on a Tuesday, 6 of them in windbreakers, 1 search warrant, and a woman who introduces herself with a badge instead of a handshake. Your assistant cries in the hallway. You are permitted 1 phone call before they take your phone. You call Thomas, not your lawyer, not your family. Thomas. He answers on the first ring, like he's been waiting for it. The plea deal takes 14 months to negotiate and results in 7 years, of which you serve 4 years and 2 months, in a low-security federal facility that smells permanently of bleach and instant coffee. Restitution is set at $11.2 million, a number you will still be paying, in fractions, when you are 61 years old. Prison is not the dramatic reckoning you braced for. It is worse in a smaller way, a routine. Count at 6, count at 10. A job in the facility library that pays 11 cents an hour. Letters that stop arriving around month 8, from everyone except 1 person. Thomas visits 4 times. He never once asks for his $12,000, though you know, because his sister tells you, that he delayed buying a house for 3 years because of what he lost. He never says a word about it. He asks about the library job. He asks if you're eating. He treats you like a person who did something, rather than a thing that happened to him, which is its own kind of mercy you didn't earn and can't return. You are released on a Thursday in March. You get a job answering phones for a moving company owned by a man who doesn't ask about the gap in your resume because your parole officer already explained it to him in advance. It pays $14 an hour. You send 400 of it to restitution every month, on time, because the alternative is going back. Somewhere, in a co-working space you'll never see, someone your age is building a pitch deck. 29 slides. A logo from a freelancer site. A friend who trusts him is about to write the first check. He doesn't know your name. He's never heard of you. He believes, the way you believed, that his version will be different. The machine doesn't need you to run it. It only ever needed someone willing to believe their own numbers before anyone else did.